1. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, we live in the 21st century. This is a globalized world, and interdependence on both sides is a reality. The question then becomes, how do we use that interdependence to get out of the poor and desperate situation we are in? The problem and fatal flaw of side government is that they assume and assert a problem but do not solve it. They claim that in status quo, we are cooked because of economic liberalism and that the US has screwed us all. I have a question or a set of questions. Question 1, is Donald Trump doing protectionism something in line with globalization or against globalization? Answer, it's against globalization. Question 2, is this particular policy of doing that, which is protectionism, in line or against economic liberalism? Answer, it's antithetical to economic liberalism. Question number 3, what has this done for the world? Has it been good? Has it been bad? Answer, kinda bad. It has led to systemic inflation all around the world, wherein the urban poor, who Jaron characterized in its extension, get ultimately wrecked and pushed further to the margin at the point in which they aren't able to afford their basic necessities, like things like insulin and other things they likewise would be able to afford. We think these are particularly harmful and as a consequence harms the average people. Let's take a look at the sole standard you should use to arbitrate this debate: the degree of engagement and standing material. What did we tell you? Number 1, my analysis coming from my speech, wherein I gave you structural reasons of how supply and demand work and how they uniquely become a check and balance against the very harms their side talks about. The biggest thing they talked about and tried to assert were debt traps. We gave you 3 reasons. A, the IMF and World Bank creating political and economic incentive structures to use your surplus. Developed countries have more abundance. Developing countries, less abundance. B, as a consequence of that surplus, it allows them to be able to refinance and restructure the debt that they have at better interest rates when they're able to negotiate getting out of those obligations. C, the worst case, something we told you coming from the second speaker's speech. At the point in which you go default, which is the worst case situation, you actually create again a political and economic incentive structure to purchase that sovereign distressed debt and be able to free them from the shackles of those obligations. On their side, you go bust and people's lives get affected. The second thing, and this is quite important, is the extension that we gave you, which was unresponded to. Jaron talked about the effect on the individual level of the person and how this affects institutions like the government, precisely because of the power of the IMF and World Bank to be able to step in. In status quo, the IMF and the World Bank are not able to do so much precisely because of all of the antithetical protectionism that Donald Trump is being able to forward. Make no mistake, we're not saying that economic liberalism and capitalism is perfect, but we think because of the features of meritocracy and the invisible hand, we're able to serve as a check and balance in and of itself to deal with the biggest and worst harms that their side accuses us of. So, for the reasons of A, degree of engagement, B, standing positive material, and C, the characterization of how supply and demand work and the interplay of that on the nuance of major financial institutions like the World Bank and IMF, we create a capitalist incentive structure to get out of the situation we're in. We are very proud to stand on side opposition.